I am Lisa Linkowski. I'm an operating committee member for the Hamilton Township Community Supporting Education, the HTCSE. It's quite a mouthful. I would like to thank all of you for coming here this evening to our annual Meet the Candidates Forum.
It's on.
It is on.
Yeah.
The light is on. Okay. All right. Here we go. Thank you very much to Mark Crabtree, Christina Vasilou Harvey, David Mayer, John Muka, Don Snedeker, Denise Soto, and Megan Stanton for taking the time from your hectic schedules to be here with us this evening. We received word yesterday that Brandon McNeese has withdrawn from the race, and his letter to the community about this decision was posted on our Facebook page. This group was started back in 2015 as a grassroots organization to help represent families and community members of Hamilton Township. Our Facebook page was a critical component in the passing of the referendum. Don't throw anything at us if you were unhappy about that, but it was a referendum that was very much needed for the infrastructure of our aging schools. We are a conduit for members of the community to speak with one another when issues are raised. It's our great honor to host our 6th annual Board of Education meet and greet. I want to personally thank all of our operating members for their patience, kindness, time, everything else that's involved in it, for helping each and every year, all year long, to help run our page and keep it as carefully courteous and kind, and everything else that we try to do. In fact, we got a beautiful post this morning of someone saying that, we've got a class act, and that was very much appreciated. I want to thank Bill and Brianne, who are here with the WBCB for live streaming this event, and to our sponsors, Haldeman Ford and the Hamilton Township Education Association, the HTEA, who also is responsible for bringing the snacks that are on the back table. A special thank you to the library for use of this room this evening, and we promise to leave it as we found it because there are numerous signs saying no food or drink, and so we want to make sure that they don't kick us out for next year. At this time, I would like to take a moment of silence to honor the fact that we are here today for 9/11 and to honor those that have lost their lives that day and all the days forward, all the way up until now. People continue to pass away from all of the issues that have come from that horrible day. So we're going to take a moment right now. Okay, I'm going to invite Fran Carroll up for a few moments to let everyone know about all of the voting options that are available for this election. She is the go-to for anything dealing with elections, and Fran, thank you so much.
Thank you. Good evening. We all hope the forum tonight will help you decide who to vote for when it comes to the general election, but I'm going to talk to you a little bit about how to actually cast your ballots. It has never been easier to find a method that works for you and a date that works for you. Lots of choices, including vote by mail, of course. The vote by mail ballots will be going out very soon. That's why we're having this forum so early. Their voting actually starts at the end of September now for those who receive their vote by mail ballots. Anyone can apply for that. We actually, on the back table, I have a bunch of applications if anybody would like to apply. If anybody needs one for your college students, please don't forget those who are away at college. And starting September 23rd, these ballots will be mailed. There is also a way to check. I was just talking to someone else who has college-age students. Sometimes you don't remember if they have signed up for it to stay on the vote-by-mail list. There is a site on Mercer County Clerk's site. If you go to Mercer County Clerk's elections, and then on the drop-down tab, there's related links, you can actually find the list of everybody who is already going to receive a vote-by-mail ballot. So if you're not sure, if you didn't get one last year, or you did get one last year, but you're not sure for this year, you can check. And I'm going to ask if we can put that on the website so that people can, our Facebook page, rather, so that people can find that easy to check, and to check everyone in your family if they want to do that. Also, there's early voting, of course. Not enough people take advantage of this. This is new here in New Jersey. But there are 9 days before the election. October 28th, starting Saturday, October 28th through Sunday, November 5th. You can go and early vote at any one of 7 locations in Mercer County. The closest one here to us is the Colonial Fire Company on Cooser Road, but if you want to go to the one in East Windsor or Pennington because you work there and it's just easier for you after work or on your lunch break or what have you, you can vote at any location for early voting. The hours for that on Mondays through Saturdays are 10 a.m. to 8 p.m. and then 10 to 6 p.m. on Sundays. They just close a little bit earlier on Sundays. But there's got to be a time in there that fits in your schedule, or in case you are going to be traveling on actual election day, which is Tuesday, November 7th. The polls are open, of course, from 6 a.m. to 8 p.m. on Tuesday, November 7th. You're going to go to your regular polling location at that time. And want you to know that this year, very exciting, Mercer County has purchased touchscreen machines. So if you ever use them or if you've seen them for early voting, when you go on election day, you're going to be voting on a touchscreen machine, just like early voting. And then it's going to print out for you. So if you don't like the Sharpies, some people didn't like using the Sharpie to mark their ballot, you don't have to worry about that. Nothing is going to bleed through, or, it's going to, I'm not sure where the school is going to appear on the ballot, but if it's on the back side, that's going to pop up on your screen, so don't worry about missing that. The voter registration date is October 17th, so if anyone, or you know anyone who might not be registered, they moved recently, they have college students, you have a 17-year-old who's about to turn 18, please register them to vote. As long as they're 18 by Tuesday, November 7th, you can register them now. And the deadline to apply for a vote-by-mail ballot by mail, like you're just filling out a form and putting it in the mail, is October 31st. You have plenty of time to do that. So please, if you have any questions about this, see me after. There's, again, on the back, there's voter registration forms. Please take a few of those. There's information about how to vote by mail. Everything is on the back table by the cookies. So when you go back there to have some of that, please, do that. And just remember to vote and encourage everyone to vote. It's kind of one of those off years, like a, big national race going on. If everybody in here tells 5 people to all the information that I just told you and reminds them the importance of voting and making their voice heard, then we'll have a great turnout. So, thank you.
All right. I told you she is the end-all of all information about voting. All right. So now we're going to turn it over to Rachel. But before we do that, I just want to reiterate that the one thing that I will say, this is our 6th year running this, we run a very respectful forum and a very respectful meet and greet. There will be no heckling, no yelling out, no disturbing the proceedings that are happening today. That happens, you're out. That is not happening today. This is being live streamed as we speak right now. It's being live streamed on a radio, and it's being live streamed on YouTube. Let's not embarrass Hamilton Township, okay? Let's run a proper forum and let everyone have their voice heard, okay? So having said that, I'm going to introduce up here Rachel Balsowitz, who is our moderator this evening, and she is going to set the ground rules for our event. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Lisa. I've done this a few times before. I should not be this nervous, but thank you, Lisa. Good evening. I'm Rachel Balsowitz, also an operating committee member for the HTCSE. We'll begin this evening with a brief 30-second introduction from each candidate. Then we'll follow with a series of questions that were sent through the Facebook page, and we've compiled those. I'm going to randomly pick them out of a bucket to make sure that they get mixed up. And then each candidate will be given 2 minutes to respond to each question. When you hear the bell, please wrap up your thoughts with a sentence or two. Only one person should be speaking at a time. And finally, we'll end our time together here with a brief closing statement from each candidate around 8:30. So we'll kick it off with you, Mark.
Thank you. Thank you, Lisa, and thank you to your guys' organization for putting this together. As I sit here and I look out, I'm really filled with joy that our community cares this much about our schools, no matter what your opinion is. So I really appreciate that. My name is Mark Crabtree. I've lived in Hamilton Township for 7 years. I'm married. I have 2 children. I have a 5-year-old and a 23-year-old, as well as a 3-year-old grandchild. My motivation to run for school board came from my youngest daughter going into kindergarten this year and looking into what the best options are for school. My wife lives in her childhood home. She's lived there her entire life, and we were very excited that my daughter would be following in her footsteps in the University Heights. But when we went to University Heights and we saw what was going on and we took notice at some of the issues, we were very disappointed. And when that happened, I'm also a first responder, and that's in my nature to not just sit down and do nothing when things that I think are not good are going on. So I felt that I had to do something for the best interest of my daughter, as well as for the best interest of all of the students and all of the children in Hamilton Township. So I appreciate your time, and thank you.
Hi, everybody. My name is Christina Vasilou-Harvey. I want to thank the HTCSE and the HTEA and the sponsors for having us here today. I currently sit on the board, so I must give a disclaimer that anything I say tonight is my own personal view and does not reflect that of the board. I also want to take a moment, just as a reminder, we had our moment of silence for 9/11. At that time, there are still people feeling the impact of 9/11, and our community had come together in 2001, and we really need to do that again. Our board meetings have become too divisive. They shouldn't be divisive. We should be trying to work together for solutions, and that's what I try to do. I'm running with 2 other mothers, Megan Stanton and Denise Soto, and what we really want to do is to work together as a whole board to solve issues. My background is I graduated from public school all the way from elementary school to Douglas College, which is the all-women's college of Rutgers, and I graduated from law school at Rutgers School of Law. I currently practice personal injury law and appellate law and also attorney ethics. I think that I have shown a commitment to this district and a commitment to listening to both sides of issues and trying to come up with solutions. I don't just discount what people say. I listen and come together, and I raise things in committee. And if you follow me on social media, you'll see I do that too. Thank you all.
Good evening. Once again, also thank you to Lisa, Rachel, and the rest of the organization for setting this up, and for all of you taking time out of your busy schedule to come out and get to meet the candidates and get to know each and one of us. My name is David Mayer. I've lived in Hamilton Township my entire life. I attended all the public schools. I went to Alexander, Reynolds, and Steiner, where I graduated. I was excited once I got married and started having kids that I wanted my kids to follow my footsteps and go to our local schools. Had no problems in the elementary school, but once he got to the middle school, we saw staffing issues, safety concerns, different things that we just weren't happy with. And at that point, we made the decision to pull him out of the public schools and send him to private. I'm saddened that my son did not have the opportunity to continue his education in the Hamilton Township public school system. I have a brother that was a teacher of Hamilton. I love the Hamilton school system. I think we have a great opportunity to teach our kids and experience great things. The reason I'm getting involved now is my daughter is now starting her first year as an elementary school teacher, and I see the struggles that she's going through. And I think that no matter who sits on this board, we need to learn to work together and solve solutions and be a team and make what's better for our students, educators, and teachers. Thank you.
Good evening, everybody. Thanks so much for coming out tonight. Appreciate you being here. I'm John Muka. I'm a lifelong Hamilton resident. I'm married with 3 children who graduated from Hamilton West. I have an MBA degree from the University of Michigan and a PhD from the School of Education at Temple University. I spent my career working for some big companies, working with teams, and I found that the big question is, can good people make bad decisions? And of course, the answer is yes, good people sometimes make bad decisions. There are good people on the board, full of good intentions, and yet we have some bad decisions being made. There's 3 main reasons. One is misinformation being used. The second is bad decision-making processes. And the third is pressure from outsiders. Each of these 3 things is happening on our current majority that serves on the school board. Now, over time, these 3 problems become habits. And when they become habits, they're hard to change. So you're faced with either retraining or replacement. An election is an accepted way to replace people, and I ask you to consider tonight replacing 3 members of the board with our MMC team who can work together to give you better results, more transparency, and much better performance for the schools and for our students. Thank you.
Good evening. Thank you for coming out tonight to this great event. My name is Don Snedeker. I have lived in Hamilton for 28 years. My wife and I have 2 children. Our daughter graduated Hamilton West this past June, and our son is in 7th grade at Grice. I attended Sayin, Reynolds, and Steiner. I did not graduate from Hamilton. I graduated from Montgomery. I'm currently a fire captain with the Hamilton Fire Department. I've been here for 13 years. I believe I've been a leader in my profession, and those skills will help me as a member of the Board of Education. I believe in an honest, common-sense approach that will benefit all students. I also believe the backbone to any community is largely based on the school system. If elected, I look forward to working with the board members to keep our school moving in the right direction for all our students and staff.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Denise Soto. I am running on the slate with Megan Stanton to my left and Christina Harvey on my right. Thank you again to the HTCSE for hosting this event and for everybody coming out this evening. I too have lived in Hamilton my whole life. I attended Sayin, Reynolds, and Steinert, and have raised 2 children in the district. I have a junior in Steiner and one that graduated from Steiner in 2021. I decided to get involved with the board just because I, too, saw how divisive it's been at these board meetings. And there has been great progress over the last number of years, even with COVID happening. And we are too sidetracked focusing on things that really are limiting our progress to continue moving forward. So I wanted to assist with that. And I also wanted to make sure that, Hamilton remains a place where we are here for every single child in the district. Every family, every culture, every religion is represented, and we want to make sure that we remain welcoming to all.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you to Lisa and your organization for hosting. Thank you to the HTEA and Haldeman Ford for helping us make this night possible. My name is Megan Stanton. I am a lifelong Hamilton resident, married to a also lifelong Hamilton resident. We're both graduates of Steiner. We're raising our son here in Hamilton as a 4th generation Hamiltonian. He is a 2nd grader. I started going to the board meetings mostly because I wanted information when he first started school about what the issues were in the district, what improvements were being made. And unfortunately, I saw that we're dealing with a lot of divisive behavior in our community, and unfortunately, a hyperfixation on one topic when we have a lot of improvements and different solutions that have been come up with in the last few years, and there's still a lot of improvements to be made. Unfortunately, though, a lot of time has been wasted. So I'm looking forward to being able to help. For the last 10 years, I have specialized in special ed. I work with both children and young adults in Mercer County and Middlesex County, and that is something that has been lacking on the board. Someone with experience advocating for our special needs population, which has been definitely needing some help in Hamilton Township. So I look forward to helping with that and being able to work with the board members to come up with some solutions in the most peaceful way possible. Thank you.
Thank you. Go ahead and draw my first question here. I think we'll start with Ms. Harvey, because Mark got to open. Okay. Okay.
I've gotten 2 requests that everyone needs to speak louder. So I've got a big mouth, I don't need a microphone. So because this is being live streamed, I got a message through someone watching it and also someone here. So just elevate your voice, hold the microphone closer so everyone can hear us. Sorry.
That's okay. Okay, first question. How does each candidate plan on helping our district with rezoning and organization of the overpopulated schools with their demographics?
Thank you. I'm currently on the long-term planning committee, and we are evaluating that issue as we speak. We hold meetings with the public, administrators, teachers, and board members. That's something that is a key issue that we need to do. In fact, one of the questions was the biggest problem, and I think the biggest problem with our district is our facilities, and we are investigating how we can do that, whether it's getting the Greenwood Ave building, the municipal building, for $1 as had been proposed by the town, and turning that into a school, or other ways that we can find locations to expand, such as we've been discussing whether we can build up at Crockett. I also think that we need to look at fairness issues so that schools around the town have similar resources, and whether that be creating schools with special programs such as an autism program or a trades program where we can consolidate the resources and have opportunities available for our students. Currently, we got rid of home ec and shop class, and those are basic life skills that I think every student really needs. So that's something that on this committee I've raised as an issue that we can try to look at where we can put that back in, whether it be a camp or a club, because our students need basic life skills in order to survive. I think there's also, we need to look at the actual, we need to hear from the parents, that when they come to board meetings, we need to listen. For instance, there was an issue that one of the middle schools didn't have recess and the other 2 did. And nobody knew, well, one school had it and the other 2 didn't. It was only from the public coming forward and having that dialogue to express that. So we really need to look at those issues. Thank you.
I agree with Ms. Soto. Yeah, the schools are overcrowded, and we need to definitely look at different ways to restructure it. You know, we also need to look at it so it's more economical, so it doesn't take a big hit on the taxpayers. You know, our taxes are high enough to begin with. We're already looking at this year a $246 million budget for the Hamilton School District, which is double what the township total municipal budget is. So we need to look at ways to be able to streamline things, work with the administration where we can restructure things, where we can get people to where they can be, where the schools aren't as overcrowded, and look to see what we can do is expanding some of the buildings, maybe working with grants to, you know, so we don't spend so much money as the taxpayers' funds. You know, we need to do what we can do and meet with the public and see where their needs are. You know, it's very important that, you know, the kids be close to where their schools are so they're not being bussed all over the place. So we definitely need to look at the restructuring of this, and you need to do it as a team. We can't, you know, not just one person can do it. So we need to work with the administration, work with the fellow school board members, and, you know, work with the township administration. So I definitely think that's an important topic that needs to be addressed, and I look forward to helping the school board address that.
I wish I could speak with some authority on what to do about rezoning schools. I'd have to say that after being at every school board meeting for the past year and a couple of months, This is never discussed in any detail at any school board meeting. There's nothing in the minutes about the meeting, nothing in the agenda. There's these committees that meet behind closed doors, and maybe they have data that they look at, but it's certainly not shared with anyone that comes to a school board meeting. And I can understand why parents don't want to come to a school board meeting, because it's very hard to sit through 2 hours of a meeting when it's very unclear what's actually happening. So this is one of those processes that is a bad habit, and the people running it have to be replaced. And then we can all get involved in understanding what these problems are. I mean, there's rumors that there's students coming into our district that are from other places. Are they true? I don't know. We don't ever see any data. So we can do better.
A lot of the answers have already been taken, actually. One of the things I would do is I would go to the town and ask the town what they're envisioning the future to be. If they're going to put a lot of houses out towards the Groveville section of Hamilton, we might need to move a school out in that direction. As far as the overcrowding goes, a giant, larger high school might be a possibility. It's a huge undertaking for the town, but it might be something that we need to look into. Those are, right now, those would be my answer. These schools are,
Certainly, overcrowding is a concern, but, we know that change takes time. It takes research. As, my running mate, Christina mentioned, there is a strategic planning committee that looks at these things, that looks at the details, where housing is being built, what the town's planning on doing, where we might be able to invest money, where we might be able to secure property. And unfortunately, change takes time. While we'd love for things to be built overnight, we really just got to do our research. I will add, there are a number of individuals on this committee that are board members as well as community members that serve because they represent a cross-section of the district. And, we entrusted a lot of these elected officials to represent our views. So if there's nothing, or something you'd like to know, you can write in, bring it up, ask the questions as well. Don't always have to wait for information to be shared with you. You can try to serve on a committee too, if you want to see change. I do agree with Dave as far as looking into additional grant opportunities. I happen to be the chief of development for a large nonprofit organization, secure millions of dollars in grant funding annually, and I do think there's opportunity there as well. But there are certainly many issues to cover in the district and only so many resources. So we need to figure out how we prioritize these various needs and where the funds are distributed, how they're distributed, and all of that takes time.
First and foremost, I want to thank the board for being very forthcoming whenever there are questions asked about these things. Things like the budget are accessible, and it is all written in very clear language, so it is easy to attain and to understand. And the board is open for questions at the end of every board meeting. We know that our school district is overcrowded, as is our state. This is just something that we deal with and has been an issue in Hamilton for a long time. We know that we're working with very limited funding. That's why, as both Denise and Dave said, it is really important that we get grants in motion for these kind of things. There are several different options, like putting additions on the secondary schools, getting more temporary education areas like the trailers that we have in some of our schools, building new facilities, but again, as Denise mentioned, that means finding real estate available, which is becoming less and less available in Hamilton. So it is a long process. Not everyone is open to redistricting. Some people, it's because of transportation. Other people prefer their neighborhood schools. So it's going to be an issue that is slowly dealt with and won't always make everyone happy, but is something that I see definitely to be a very solid goal for the district.
Thank you. I have to say, There's not many answers left after everyone goes. I do agree with many of the things that's said here. When it comes to rezoning, you have to work with the township, with the zoning board and things like that. And firefighting, we have urban wildfire interface, and it's the way that we can work together when fires happen, when you have an urban area, which is very different than a wildfire area, and that way you protect one by addressing another, and you have to take two different sets of firemen working together in order to protect both. And I think that's the only way to move forward. We hear a lot about many people here saying they want to work together more, no divisiveness. Well, then we need to work with the township as well. We are a school board, or they are a school board, but they don't work independently, and they don't have to. You can actually work with other committees in the town. You can work with other boards in the town to get these things done. I'll be honest, I find it absolutely shocking to hear a board member say they didn't know what's going on in school. He kind of asked me, well, then what have you been doing for 3 years? You know, you should be in contact with your school. Each board member is given schools that they are in charge of. Well, talk to the other board members, right? Just communicate with each other. Go out to Panera Bread. I've seen them out there. Go have coffee and talk to each other. I mean, that's the only way things are going to get done in Hamilton to address all these concerns and to make sure that they're prioritized in the proper way is if the board is communicating with each other, working together with one another and the township. So when it comes to zoning, I'm not an expert on zoning. I don't think any of us are. Well, maybe Dave is because he was on the zoning board. But if he was on that board, then we go to him for his authority and his knowledge that he would bring to the table when it comes to things like zoning and things like that. When it comes to redistricting, we have to look at what the community wants. Right? If you go to the State Board Association website, it says one of the major components of being a board member is taking your community's concerns into account, not just your own thoughts and ideologies. So I think we need to do a better job of working together into the community, finding out what their thoughts are, as well as the township.
Next question. Start with Mr. Mayor. As a Board of Education member, you will be entrusted with making decisions that impact our diverse community. How do you plan to ensure that you honor your oath of office and perform your duties in a way that is fair, equitable, and unbiased, even when faced with issues and policies that may conflict with your personal, religious beliefs or convictions?
Well, first of all, the schools are for all students, not just any select group of students. So we need to make sure that they're all welcomed, and I would definitely support being there for the students. My background, you know, I grew up at a church in Trenton where it was run by Germans, and then eventually the city changed and it became Haitian and then Hispanic and everything. And 1 year, because of my family's dedication to the culture of that neighborhood, my father was honored by the Haitians as the Father of the Year. So I can definitely work with different cultures and different groups. I have a respect for everybody. We're all the same. We should all be treated the same, and I absolutely have no problem with working with different ethnicities and races and groups. I will full-heartedly sit on that board and support people for who they are.
I think all three of us that are running as a slate share those exact same views. We're there for all the children. The success of every student is important. Now, the thing is, the kids grow up during their time at the school. So they eventually end up facing puberty. And this is when the difficulties really start for a lot of our students, and this has been what people are saying is a source of divisiveness. It's a source of trying to work these problems out. The boys are afraid to become men, and the girls are afraid to grow up and become women, and it's very difficult in today's world. But we got to face the reality here and discuss it, the biologic realities that we try to gloss over and pretend that they don't exist. So we need to have open discussions. I've said it many times when I've spoken at these board meetings. We need this group of people getting together on a Saturday morning for 4 or 5 hours, and let's reason this out together and face all the realities that these students are up against, not just while they're in our schools, but what they're going to face in the future as a result of what happens while they're in the schools. And if you want to know how the school board meetings run, they're all on YouTube at the HTCSE website or YouTube channel. They do a great job. Go home tonight or tomorrow and watch at least one of those school board meetings. And then you'll see just how much openness and transparency there actually is. Now, we can't go on with that. We have to fix that problem at the school board level before we can solve all the other problems we're faced with.
Could I hear the question one more time?
As a Board of Education member, you will be entrusted with making decisions that impact our diverse community. How do you plan to ensure that you honor your oath of office and perform your duties in a way that is fair, equitable, and unbiased, even when faced with issues or policies that may conflict with your personal religious beliefs or convictions?
Thank you. For me, it's very simple. Everybody learns math basically the same way. You might be a little slower in it. I know I was. You might be better at it. English, history, social studies. Everybody's going to be taught the same way, as long as it is fair across the board. If the teachers at Steiner are teaching it the same way as the teachers at West, same with the middle schools, same with the elementary schools, there should not be an issue as far as that goes. And I will support, if I'm elected to the board, I will support what we all decide that we're going to do.
As a board member, you do take an oath to that you will, represent all of the people in the community. And it really was motivation for me to join this board. As I mentioned, I grew up in this district, and when I tell people about me, they laugh because I'm a brown woman. I have a child who's a lesbian. I'm married to a Hispanic. I was raised Muslim. You name it, and I check the box. It's been these things that have been a part of me, that are a part of me, that have helped me really to connect to other people. I feel like it's given me a broader worldview. I understand that everybody comes from a different place. What some people consider family traditions, what looks right for one family may look completely different to another family, what their traditions are. And it's just a matter of being able to respect them, learn from them, and understand that, what makes us unique is what makes us special. So it does help our children learn, because at the end of the day, they have to work with each other. They're going to grow up, they're going to move out of Hamilton, they're going to go to college, they're going to meet other people that are not like them. So you want them to learn as much as possible, as early as possible. And, to Don's point, certainly, we want equity across the board. We want our schools to have the same resources for all. We don't want, one area or community deemed, better than another because, they have parents that have the ability to really come forward and participate and raise additional funds. While we talk a lot about schools being equal, what we need to make sure is that they're equitable. So there may be a school that has a lot of parents that can contribute and a school that doesn't. So we have to make sure that that school that doesn't still has the same resources as the school that does.
First and foremost, it is important to me when representing our students that we all do leave our religious and personal beliefs at the door. This is about, regardless, what is best for our students in our township. When it comes to diversity, I'm really grateful to see Hamilton becoming more diverse, as I am from a multiracial family. I'm raising a biracial child in this district, and we have seen in the last 10 years a lot more growth and improvement when it comes to the diversity within our district. I find that we still do have some issues with inequity within our schools, and that should no longer be an issue. That should be something that we continue to work on, and I plan on working on as a board member, because neighborhood shouldn't matter, and unfortunately it has for a long time. What neighborhood you had really played a role in what kind of education you'd gotten in Hamilton, and now that we are all under and supporting of the one Hamilton ideal, it is important that we continue to work on equity and keeping things as equal as possible for all of our students, regardless of race, gender, ethnicity, identity, or otherwise. Thank you.
This is an extremely important issue for Hamilton. Hamilton is in the top 1% in the state for diverse schools, so we are extremely diverse. We're also in the top 1% of our schools, not just for diversity, but how many students are in our school system. So if it is important to any school district, it should be important to Hamilton, being the most students, the most diverse. And again, once again, we just go back and we can easily look, Kuzer, Layler, George Wilson, they're all ranked 1 out of 10, and that is despicable. If you go up a little bit more, though, Morgan, they rank 5 or 6 out of 10. So we see it across the board, and it's the board's responsibility to divvy up funds and resources and tools so that every single one of these students across elementary schools, whether they're at Wilson or Morgan, have the same opportunities for the same achievements. It's obviously not happening. Because if it was, these would not be the results that we have. These are hard facts, they're numbers, they're the results. So how do you do this? It's a very simple and easy answer. It's all about context. You're in the context of public school. That's what you deal with. It's public school for everyone all the time. There is no group or subgroup that is more important or prioritized higher than any other. Whether you're talking about race, creed, religion, identity, sexual preference, whatever it is, the gay and the lesbian and the LGBTQ community should be just as important as the straight community. The religious should be just as important as the non-religious. You don't favor one group over the other, because when you do that, even if you think it's in the betterment of one group to push them to feel better about themselves, as you're doing that, you are driving down the other group. So you are literally, by saying you're pushing equity, you're forcing inequity. And we need to find a better and more neutral ground to be able to work at that so that we can actually achieve equity in the township and not a fall equity.
Thank you. I took 2 oaths to uphold the laws of the state of New Jersey, first as an attorney and then when I became a board member. I also took an oath to do what's in the best interest of the students. At board meetings, when I felt that students were being attacked, I took a stand and made sure to remind the board members and the public of what our obligations are as a board, that we cannot discriminate against anybody. As Mr. Crabtree said, we can't discriminate against one group or another, and we need to make that clear. In addition, though, for the inequities in the school district, we made sure as a board that when we saw inequities in our budgeting, that we've taken steps to prevent that. For instance, the proposed budget in 2021 to 2022, after coming out of the pandemic, 2022 to 2023, did not include enough basic skills. And we saw that the kids coming out of the pandemic, they had 2 years of learning on computer. And we needed to figure out how can we get these resources so that these students can have test scores that will improve. We can't forget and look at these test scores in isolation, that these kids had 3 years, basically, of learning by computer. My own kids, that's actually what motivated me to run for the board initially, is that I had a kindergartner learning by computer, and that's not how you can effectively learn. So for the budgeting process last year, we said as a board, there aren't enough basic skills, and we asked them to add it to the budget, and they did. And we allocated those resources by school. Test scores are not diagnostic when you look at them. You need to actually look at the teachers to say who needs the help. They need to look at that, and then we allocate those basic skills teachers so everyone can get help if they need it.
Okay, next question. Okay. Special education concerns are prevalent in Hamilton. Parents have difficulty navigating the referral process, find working with child study teams difficult, and always feel like they are fighting for minimal services. How can you help to develop a more robust special education program? We'll start with Mr. Muka.
Yes, we hear this quite a bit all the time, really, that special ed needs greater attention. And once again, we need involvement from the community to do this effectively so that parents have a program to work with and there's enough feedback to the board to make sure that program is actually working. Now, I don't see evidence of this when I spend time at the school board meetings. There may be lots of great things being worked on behind closed doors, but they're not made public. It's not part of the conversation that we're allowed to have. We can't talk about it in the board meetings because it's all, structured to prevent you from participating as somebody that's sitting in the room. And so, as I learned more and more about this, I was more and more surprised at how much difficulties people are having. So we need to put new people on the board to take a much more involved approach in this particular problem especially, because it's rampant. There are so many students in these type of situations now. I don't think most people in the community even realize how many there are. So we need to publicize that, communicate, let everybody get in on this, so that when it comes time to spend the money, we have a consensus in our community that it's a worthwhile thing to do and it must be done.
As a board member, I would have to look into the issues that are coming out. I would talk to the child study teams. I would look, if able, I'm not quite sure exactly how far a board member can go. Get input from parents, find out what their issues are. They could be very simple issues, they could be very complex issues, it could just be a misunderstanding. So without knowing all of that, it would be tough to say how to fix it without knowing what the problems are.
I do agree with Mr. Snedeker on this. Every child is unique, and a special needs child even more so, right? So what may work for one child may not work for another. My daughter was diagnosed with a language processing disorder in kindergarten and ADHD. She has since graduated from the district. She received services from the district, and to be quite honest, when I see some of these comments about the special needs services in the school, it takes me by surprise because it worked for us. She got a fabulous education. I credit the township for the education that she got. She's an avid reader, something, that we weren't sure, these attributes that she has, we weren't sure she ever would because of what we had thought, when she received her diagnosis. But I will say, the level of care that she received in elementary school, vastly different from that of middle school than that from high school. So I always, thought, maybe there could be something better for the continuum of services. Even though I am newly put on the school board, I still have a lot to learn. And I look forward to learning about it, listening more from the families and the community, and certainly, hopefully, working with a specialist in the area, my colleague Megan.
I want to thank the community for this question. As I said, this is my area of expertise. I work primarily with autistic students, but I work with lots of different disabilities. Children 5 through 25 at this point, so I definitely have the experience with this. We know that there are issues with special ed in Hamilton. I've heard it time and time again from both families and students and even staff members about issues with staffing and things like that. Unfortunately, the board can't jump in and fix everything, but I do plan to do my part to be a liaison between the special ed community and the board, because at this point, our special education parents' meetings will be back running soon, and unfortunately, the board doesn't get reports about these meetings, so if the board's not hearing about what's happening at these meetings, there's no way for them to make these changes. So I do plan on being a liaison between those two things, and hopefully being able to start a special education committee for on the board, the way that we have a curriculum committee, a buildings committee, et cetera, because this is a population that continues to rise in New Jersey. People move to New Jersey for these services, so it's a population that's going to continue to grow and that we are responsible for serving. We do have some improvements that have been made in the district recently. We have invested more into our autism services. Our English language learners program has improved. We have now the seal of biliteracy. And these are all improvements that, of course, have taken a lot of work, and it will be slow to move along with any of this. As we know, it all costs money. But you will, if I am elected, ultimately have someone who has been in the situation of the advocates on the other side of the board, has been there for these families, and I really think at this point it is dire for us to have someone that knows the other end of it, the family end, in on the board. Thank you.
It's another topic that's very close to my heart. My niece is a student at Crockett. She went to 8th grade this year, and she has IEPs. And one thing I noticed with her, as long as you work with her at home, and the teachers spend enough time at school with her, she improves. But yet they continue to keep her in these programs. I've asked them about it, and it really seems to be that because the more students that are in these programs, the more money the township gets. It's actually pretty appalling. And the way to robust them, as to directly answer the question, is I think we need to go right to the teachers. Instead of blaming the teachers that it's their fault we don't know things, I think we need to go ahead and maybe offer them better packages, better tools, better resources. It's absolutely ridiculous that the superintendent makes $238,000 a year, yet our special education teachers, many of them make under $50,000 a year. That's despicable. Why does our superintendent need a 3% increase in raise in October of 2020 when we were dealing with the pandemic? He did not. Once again, mismanagement of budget. And that's really what it comes down to, mismanagement of budget. Once again, we heard from another board member that she was shocked that she heard there was a problem in the school system. If you are so connected with the community that you have such concern for, how can you be that shocked? When I signed up to run for board, the very next day, I started going into the community, talking to parents, talking to teachers, talking to business owners. I was talking to anybody I could to find out what our community thinks, feels, and what they are in need of. If you're not communicating with your community, you have no idea what's going on in your schools.
I just want to take a moment, while it's not directly responsive to the question, that Dr. Rocco, during the pandemic, did a phenomenal job, and he actually was voted the Superintendent of the Year in New Jersey for his work. We had communication every day about the pandemic from Dr. Rocco's office, and he works over the weekend, at night. You text him as a board member, and he responds immediately. He is responsive to our district, and he is essential to our district being as efficient as it is right now. In terms of special ed, I think, and this is something that we've raised on the long-term facility committee, and I've also raised it on the finance committee, that we need to look for efficiencies, that there are issues. We need to save money so that we can invest it back for the students. For instance, if we keep sending students out of district because of their special needs, then that's money that it costs us so much more than developing our own programs in-house. And we are the 10th largest district in the state. We should have more programs in our district for these students. And that's something that we have raised as a discussion for the Long-Term Facilities Committee. Where can we house this? How can we get this done? How can we attract more parents to our district so that we're marketable, that if we improve our autistic program, then we can actually raise our property values, because this will be a district that people want to come to. And then actually will also raise the morale of our teachers and our students, that this is a district, if we become a leader for these services, but we need to work on them, and that's what we're doing in committees right now. And I think that for people to say that we're not doing anything is just not realistic.
I couldn't agree more that the special needs students need the opportunity to learn and be educated as much as the other students. It's important that we work with the special needs. I agree with Ms. Stanton about forming a committee, especially including multiple parents with special needs children. We can't work with special needs if we can't understand what their needs are and what the parents' struggles are. We need to look at other school districts who maybe have succeeded in special needs, maybe work with the state programs who have good special needs, and bring some of those into our school districts. We need to definitely make it more easy for these students to learn so they can be successful and do what they need to do in society. And I look forward to being able to work with the organizations and provide that education for them.
Okay, our next question, we'll start with Mr. Snedeker. Okay. What roles do board members play in developing new policies? How does that role intersect with federal and state statutes and regulations?
I'll be honest, I do not know on how that would transpire. Looking at it in the obvious ways, if a parent came in and wanted a policy, or a teacher wanted a policy on something, first you'd have to make sure there wasn't already a policy very similar to that there wasn't one. I assume there would be a committee that would, if it was a math policy, there should be a math group that would come up with and be able to make this policy, look into the state to make sure that we're not going against any state or federal regulations.
So, it wasn't until, I threw my hat in the ring for the board seat that I really learned what a board member could do. There's a lot of misconceptions about the power a board member has, and there's not a whole lot. We're here to listen to the community for sure, but there's 4 main things a board member is charged with doing. They hire and evaluate the superintendent, they approve the budget, they vote on the curriculum, which comes down from the State Department of Education, and they set policies based on laws that are passed in Trenton and by recommendations from our board attorneys. So as far as policies are concerned, we're really looking at what's coming out of the state and what's coming from the recommendation of our board attorneys, so that, of course, we're setting policies that are consistent with the rest of the state, and that we're not going to do anything that poses any, legal threat.
Very simply put, the board doesn't just get to create these policies. It is all based on laws coming from the state and federally. It is our job to follow these laws and to make sure that the superintendent is doing the same. But the policies are not based on just what our community favors. These are laws that we are obligated to follow at risk of losing things like funding that we desperately need, things like lawsuits that we can't afford to have. So really, it's just about following the law. That's where the policies come into play. Our policy is to follow the law that is given to us by the state and federal government.
Just a reminder to speak as loudly as you can. Another request.
Thank you. So much as Mr. Snedeker said, I don't really know the intricate details. Obviously, those on the board would know far more than any of us that have never served on a school board before. But I can tell you the way doing policy should work. Being on other boards for veterans groups and fire department and all that, working together, talking about the issue and finding out which way inside the law and the statutes that are there that work best for your community. You don't just lockstep in with whatever the state says. You have a framework that you have to go by with the state, and the state can give you guidelines, but you actually don't have to do every guideline that the state says unless it's a law that's been passed down from our Congress and our Assembly and all that. So it's actually a big misconception that you have to follow every little guideline that the state does. You don't. You have to figure out what's best for your community and the people that are in your community and what fits. Because, you see lockstep things. I just followed what the leaders told me. My grandparents were in concentration camps in Poland, and my great-grandfather was shot at his crystal factory in Krakow, Poland, along with many of the other family members. And my grandfather was thrown in a work camp. He then went to a death camp to clean up the bodies. Okay? And when going back and finding out why people were so willing to do these things, it was, well, I just did what I was told I should do. So no, that is not the right context, that we just follow the law, because you have a framework and you need to responsibly and intelligently work within the framework you're given. Obviously, you follow the state laws because you're not trying to break any of them, but you work within the framework itself. You don't just lockstep with whatever want or desire that the state throws down without looking into, is it best for your community?
I agree, if it's not a mandate, then the board shouldn't just blindly follow something that's recommended. However, we do have to follow when the law requires something. As a lawyer, I look at what the statute says, what the regulation says. That's what I do for a living, and I understand how to challenge something the right way. And it's not proper to run for the board and advocate to change something that's required by the law. If it's required, and the proper channel is to challenge it in our state government, if that's the issue, or our federal government, if it's a federal issue. But what we've heard at board meetings is that they want us, as a board, to violate the law. And that is not within our power. We took an oath, and we would be removed if we were to violate that law. So we need to actually look at what is required. And I do that as a board member. I look at the proposed policies. And in fact, when there were concerns from the community, I proposed a policy. I raised it in committee. I read it at our board meetings twice. And the first time, people said, you know what? There are legal issues with that. Let's go back. And other people said that policy isn't going to meet what the goal of the resolution is, that it didn't address the concerns that were being raised. So that policy didn't go anywhere. But what we did, importantly, was look at what the law required and whether that policy would comply with the law. So I'm very skilled, both in my day job and my night job as a board member, to look at the law and make sure that we are complying. And I speak up to make sure that what is being proposed actually does follow the law.
As most of the candidates up here said, most of the stuff that comes down comes either through the state or through federal mandates or laws or recommendations. And as a board member, would sit and I would go through each of these rules and regulations and laws, make sure that they're not violating anything that's done for our students, work with the state and legislature and the local legislature and see if we can't do things that will make sure that our kids aren't being violated, that we need to make sure that the policies are being formed and that they are the right policies for our district. And I would love to work with the opportunity to work with the local government and the state government to make sure that, like they said, we can't always change the policy, but we certainly can work towards the people who do change those policies. And if we find things that in this state that don't agree with our municipality, I would work hard as an advocate to fight to make sure that we are doing the right thing for our districts.
There are two basic principles that operate in regard to our school board. The first is informed consent. And the only people that can consent are the parents and the taxpayers. They need to be informed. The second principle is, in New Jersey, it's called home rule. We are a home rule state, which gives a vast amount of authority to the local municipality and the local school board to determine what happens in our schools. And that's why we're here tonight, because we have a local school board. If we are just going to listen to the state mandates, then what are we here for? We can get rid of the school board and just do what we're told. Now, Ms. Harvey is a proponent of Policy 5756, and I'd be happy to give you the link to show you where she expounded on this in the recent school board meeting. Now, this was passed in 2016. It's a transgender policy. It says parents are not to be informed of pronoun changes or name changes unless the student gives permission to inform the parents. That happened in 2016. Did any of you know that? It also says that you can use the bathroom of your gender choice, not your biological choice. That was in here since 2016. Do you know about that? So there's no informed consent being given here. And what I found with the board is they have a learned helplessness attitude. We can't do anything, we can't change our policy, we have to live with it. It's a fallacy, it's not true. These things have to be tested in court when lawsuits are brought. That's how law becomes case law, and that has broad applicability when that happens. Until then, a law is just something that was passed, and if people have a problem with it, we still have that other balance of power, which is the court system. And we need to use that if that's necessary. Simple answer is, replace the people on the board with a team of 3 people, because it's majority rule on the board. If you just change out one person, you're not going to get any effectiveness.
Just a reminder, no outbursts and all applause. We should keep it brief because we are trying to keep to the schedule. And please be polite. I don't want to hear any booing for anybody.
Next question. We'll start with Ms. Soto. Mrs. Soto, what do you think is the single biggest, most pressing issue facing the Hamilton Township School District right now, and how would you address it? Again, just one issue.
This was a really tough one. I would say currently our biggest issue we're facing is staffing shortage. Really being able to hire and retain the amount of teachers that we need. And, you know, there are many things that our district does well, but there's other things that our district just can't compete with at the time. So as a board member, I'd like to look into more what else we can do to really attract a new, you know, class of teachers. There is a hiring shortage nationally across the board. There's also a lot less students going into the profession, you know, and so that's a concern as well. But the things that we do well as a district, I mean, we really value professional development, and our district pays for that. So teachers are required to do a certain amount of hours every year. The district will pay for that. They also encourage our teachers now to develop their own professional development curriculum so they can teach other teachers, and then they get paid for that as well, so that helps bring in additional income. So there are creative ways, but really at the end of the day, it also just comes down to feeling valued, feeling respected, and, you know, just loving the people that you work with, and that includes the parents too. So as a board member, I'd want to make sure that our teachers are well taken care of, they do love their job, and I would do, you know, as much as possible to advocate for them so we can continue to attract, you know, the great teachers that we currently have and retain them for many years to come.
It will probably not be a surprise to hear me say that our main issue is special ed. This has been an issue for years at this point, and we live in a region where we are very academically competitive, and special ed is #1 in New Jersey, so that is something that I'm proud of and something that we can improve. Like I said, starting up our special parents meetings again, having a thorough liaison to work with the board and the special parents meetings, having a committee set up specifically for special ed the way that we do for mainstream curriculum, creating more training for our teachers, both special ed and mainstream, as we have with our Gillingham training here in Hamilton for our dyslexic population. I also think it's important at this point that we address the issue with aides. Although we know that, as Denise said, there are staffing issues everywhere, we definitely need more paras and student assistant aides to work in these classrooms that are properly trained and ready to take on the challenges of the populations in those classrooms. Unfortunately, this is an area where there's high turnover in all districts, but I feel like Hamilton at this point has programs that are expanding and can give way for some new growth in our hiring process as well. I also just wanted to add in at the end that Mr. Crabtree is not the only person on this board tonight who has been affected by having Jewish family members in the Holocaust. I don't really think that's an appropriate subject to bring up at this time. I proudly follow American laws, not the laws of a fascist organization like the Nazis. We are talking about laws that are developed by our assembly, our Congress, that are made by people that specialize in these areas. There's nothing in the curriculum at this point that is not developmentally appropriate, and the laws that we are following aren't fascism. Thank you.
It's unfortunate that people like to make assumptions based on nothing that they know about. My family's not Jewish. I said they were Polish, but anyway. And whether you're following fascist law or not, if you're following a law that is ethically wrong, doesn't matter what government it comes from, it's wrong. It's called knowing the difference between right and wrong, and you shouldn't blindly follow things if they're wrong just because I'm following what my leaders told me. Basic principle. So anyway, you know, it's really simple to know what the toughest issues in Hamilton are. When you go into the community and talk to them, I think Soto said it best, it's teachers. That's definitely one aspect of it. And why are we losing teachers? Why would 121 teachers resign from Hamilton District, right? The latest I heard from a lady that just left Hamilton Township School District because she didn't feel safe and she didn't feel like it was good for her mental health. So she chose to go work in Trenton High School. That's pretty shocking that our schools are that unsafe that she's going into an area that is usually considered more unsafe. And so we need to figure out why. So when I talk to these teachers, just like from elementary to high school, I've talked to them, I said, what do you need for us to do our jobs better to provide for you? And the big things were, we don't have the tools and resources necessary to do our jobs properly. And it goes back to, again, looking at budget line items. Why are our teachers not paid like our superintendent? He may have done very many great things during the pandemic. It still doesn't answer the question of why he gets paid so absorbently more than our educators are. Why are our educators left needing resources, leaving the schools, fleeing the schools? We have people that have come here to work and bring their children into these schools at one point that are now, when their children get of age, they leave because they don't want them in Hamilton Township schools. So addressing the teacher problem is also the second major problem, which is the family relationship with the township, with the school district.
Just a quick response of Mr. Crabtree saying that it's right, following right versus wrong. We as a board have to follow the law as written. And Mr. Muka just personally attacked me for following policy 5756. He said, I personally agree with that policy. I do not personally agree with anything I do as a board member. I act ethically within my power as a board member to vote for things that follow the law. And I would just point out that that policy 5756 directly comes from a statute that we as a board are obligated to follow, NJSA 18A 36-41B3. That's where Mr. Muka's policy comes from, 5756. So I don't feel that I should be personally attacked for following the law. As to the biggest problem in our district, as I had mentioned earlier, it is our infrastructure. And we as a board have been making strides to improving it. There's no amount of money that can just magically appear to fix it all at once, but we have been working hard to fix it along the way. For instance, there's flooding with our athletic fields. I went to inspect them before approving the turf field, and students were in gym class and falling in the holes of the field. So we took money to improve that, and now we have 3 beautiful fields that just had their opening on Saturday. We also had AC improved for our high school auditoriums and cafeterias that we have a line item for these improvements, and every year we try to chip away at it. The Long-Range Planning Committee is trying to look at these issues broadly to see how to best restructure the district. And I have been advocating to see if we can combine different schools. We talk about being one Hamilton, and so I think trying to look at how we can organize would be best.
I think one of the biggest problems right now is curriculum, basic life skills. We have kids out there graduating that don't know how to read and write cursive. You know? These kids, we need to go back to learning and teaching the kids how to write cursive, how to balance checkbooks, how to live life, how to, you know, like we said earlier about bringing back the home ec and the vote tech classes. You have kids at home that, 17, 18 years old, the only way they know how to eat, Uber Eats. They have it delivered. You know what? Let's teach these kids home ec classes. Let's teach these kids a vote tech program. Let's get that more involved in the township, because you know what? As much as I think it's important for kids to learn and go on to college, guess what? College isn't everyone. It's not for everyone. Let's have a vote tech program where kids can learn a trade. Nowadays, kids aren't doing these kind of things, and we're not going to have people in our society to do these jobs for them if we don't have our kids in the curriculum to teach these kids life skills and how to succeed in life, other than just the basic, your math, reading, and arithmetic, stuff like that. We need to teach basic skills back to these kids.
I just want to say first that I'm really happy that we're all up here having this kind of discourse and conversation. It's not personal by any means. It's all about what's best for our township. And we need to have a lot more of these conversations, small groups, whatever we have to do. It's a big school district. It's $240 million in the budget. There isn't one problem that's bigger problem than the rest. There's a lot of problems. But here's one that is a pretty big problem. Our schools are performing in the bottom third of performance according to the New Jersey State performance testing. Bottom third. Our nearby schools are in the top third. That's a problem. The bigger problem is this came out in April 23rd, never brought up at a school board meeting, never discussed, never made a priority to say, what's our plan to do something about this, try to understand it. It's probably a multitude of issues that have to be solved. But first we have to pay attention to the results, the performance, and what Dave is saying here is exactly right. Kids are going out there not knowing how to do the basics. And how are they going to compete with these other schools, our nearby schools, West Windsor, Plainsboro South, doing so great? This is a handout in the back. Take it with you when you leave tonight and consider that.
Well, I agree with most of it. The infrastructure in the school system needs to become up. The curriculum, which comes down from the state, could be changed, but none of that can be done without teachers. The teacher shortage is, for me, the biggest problem. How would I fix that? I would want to ask the current staff members, on an anonymous way, I don't want to think they're being singled out, why would they leave? And do exit interviews for teachers that do leave, and figure out what the problem is, and then fix the problem from there.
Okay. Looking at time, this will be our last question. Okay. This may be our last question. Okay. This is a long one. Bear with me. The board doesn't have oversight over what books go on library shelves. Those are called choice books because students choose or not choose to read them. Those books are selected by librarians, people certified by the state as qualified to do the job. What is your stance on book removals or book banning within the school district? How do you balance the need to protect students from potentially harmful content with the importance of promoting intellectual freedom and a diverse range of perspectives in education?
Thank you. I personally am against the banning of books, period. I feel like it's un-American. We have the rights, the freedom, and the liberty to read. And I will continue to support that for our students. Regardless of what these books in question are, it's not up to me to decide if it's something I'm interested in or something that I like. As policy 7300 states for the state of New Jersey, that is between the librarians and the superintendent. It's not up for us to decide. It's not mandatory curriculum. It's not something that's being forced on anyone. It's something that is maybe available if the librarian chooses to put it there and the superintendent agrees to it. That is not something that as board members we really have a say in, regardless of our opinion. Thank you.
Thank you. I think when it comes down to books, number one, I don't think anybody up here and anybody I've ever heard has actually called for book banning. So I think we need to be honest about what actually is happening. Restricting access to a book due to content, if it's age appropriate, is not book banning. That is really just an overcharged word that's used to kind of garner a reaction out of people, and it's pretty sad. So we need to really have just an honest discussion. And when we're talking about books, I'll be very honest, my wife's a youth services librarian here in Mercer County. We have a lot of knowledge about what's appropriate for kids in the libraries. And so when you go to look at a book, you have to figure, what is the literary value of the book? What is the literary value, whether it's fiction or nonfiction? There's some books that have been talked about through many school boards throughout the country, and there are some that have literary value, but the graphic novel value of it is zero. In fact, graphic novels, in case anyone was not aware, are the only type of book that have a rating. And if it's rated M, it shouldn't be in a public school because that's 17 and over. We do the same thing with movies, video games, magazines. We do it the same way across the board, and no one has ever had an issue with that. So why would we allow children under the age of 17 to have access to a book when we wouldn't let them have access to a movie? You literally get ID'd at an R-rated movie at a movie theater. So to say things are banned when they're really restricted due to appropriateness, it's happened throughout history. I think it's really just taking away from the actual issues here. The books that should be in a school library are ones that are academically, literary appropriate, and they should have value in those ways, no matter what group it's for. Again, there are certain books that literary value is top-notch if you take the pictures out of the book, because the pictures push it over a line that is not appropriate.
Thank you. As a member of the book review committee, I have been tasked with reading the books that have been brought to the board meetings. And I actually authored a committee report about one of the books. And there is a very specific process in our policy. What Mr. Crabtree mentioned about a movie company denying somebody entry for a movie is actually a separate issue, because we are the state. We infringe on people's rights if we act. A movie company is a private industry. The MPAA, that's a private association. They can do whatever they want. So they can restrict access in a different way that we cannot. And my committee report is a publicly available document. You can review it at length. I went through the analysis. We have factors that we look at, and one of which is the maturation level. The maturation level for the book at issue only circulates at the high school. And actually, that's one of the issues for the long-range planning committee, is that maybe we want to change the organization and high schools are a different age. Currently, they're 9th through 12th grade. If there's a legitimate concern, but books are rated by experts, and the experts say they are okay for high school. We are not circulating any books lower than high school. I think that it's important that we understand what the role is. So if there is a complaint to a book, then the committee reviews it, and then it goes to the board. The board chose not to do anything. So the analysis was that the book serves the maturation level of the pupils. Thank you.
I'm not going to go out and say that I'm into full book banning, because I absolutely disagree with book banning. However, if there are books in our libraries that are sexually graphic or violent, they should not be in the hands of our children. Each book needs to be taken by its own content. I'm not going to generally say every category of this such whatever should be banned, but I think it should be the responsibility of the school board and the librarian. If the librarian is putting these books in and the school board reviews these books and deem them sexually graphic or violent, they should not be in our school systems. And that's it. Thank you.
The basic issue here is not about banning books. The issue is banning pornography in the school libraries. There were 6 books challenged because they had pornographic material in them. Ms. Harvey slow-walked the whole process. Only 1 book ever got to her committee to be reviewed, and then they did a little maneuvering to make sure that the vote went against taking the book off the shelf. Now, when I was in college, there was a thing called Playboy magazine, and some of us were embarrassed to be seen with the Playboy magazine. Not me, of course, I would never do that. But there were men that were embarrassed about that, and they would say, I do it because it has good articles in it, it has good content. So it's got great content until, just like what Dave was saying, till you have the pictures to go with it. And then all of a sudden, it's pornography, so let's put a stop to it. A simple thing, and this is the baffling thing about all this divisiveness, it should be common sense that we don't want pornography in our school libraries. Now, if you elect these people back to the board, they are committed to it. And go look at Ms. Harvey in the May edition of the school board videos, and you'll see it for yourself. If you believe in that, you believe that pornography is somehow good for people, make your choice. Otherwise, you need to elect our team to give us a majority on the board to change these things, because unlike Megan, we don't think that we're without recourse here to do something about these problems.
As long as the books are age appropriate, they're done by experts. If there's an issue that can be brought back up to the board can bring it back to their committee, and we can go from there. But they're experts that I'm assuming the state has picked to do that. No, I would not want pornography in elementary school or middle school or high school, but all these books are age appropriate.
I don't have too much to add. I am completely with Megan in that I do not support the banning of books. I do have faith that our librarians are educated. They have master's degrees to learn about, what books are appropriate for their curriculum. They are the experts in this field. I trust our librarians. I'm a librarian in my family. This is what they do. And, I'm not going to challenge their expertise because I am not educated in that. Now, we talk about literacy. We want our kids to be more literate. We also want our kids to know about things like consent. If they're questioning something, they should be able to access a book to to learn about it. Something that is, yes, age appropriate, and that provides them with the information that makes them comfortable if they feel like they don't have someone that they can turn to and ask these questions. This is why these resources are available to our children. We want to make sure that they're never put in a position where they have to fear asking a question or, saying no to something because they haven't learned what, say, informed consent is.
All right, we're running a little on time. If we do one more question, that puts us at 14 minutes, and we still want to do closing. So can we do like a minute and a half and get that through so we get one last question? Does that work for everybody? 30-second answer? Speed round? This will be our last question, and we'll do closing remarks.
Okay, try to read fast. Teacher recruitment and retention are critical for educational success. How do you plan to attract and retain high-quality educators within our district?
Great question. I think we've all spoken to this for speed. This should go well. Retention of teachers and getting them in. Again, we got to provide them with the tools and the resources they need. We got to know that, or we have to let them know that they are supported from the administration level, board level, all the way down to families. Talked to another person who has a son in Hamilton Township Schools who's a teacher, and he said the biggest problem he has is of families involved with the education of their children, and we need to find a way to, again, have that interface between educators and the families. It's key. If we don't have the families and the parents involved in the education of the children on every level, I mean, not even just the divisive ones, but on every single level, we are not going to be able to cultivate an environment that teachers will want to work in. So let's keep our teachers here in Hamilton instead of sending them for the hills of Trenton.
I think there's 3 ways that we can improve our teachers. That, 1, we need to make sure that they are fairly compensated. 2, we want to create programs that add to our morale. For instance, the Gladiator Cafe was a cafe at Grice that is receiving statewide attention. It won an award. We have a drone program and robotics programs that are receiving national attention as well. We need to cultivate that atmosphere so a teacher can be proud, yeah, that's my school. That's a Hamilton School District. We also want to offer incentives for advancement, like pursuing master's degrees and pairing them with programs that will help our students.
First and foremost, we need to interview the teachers that are leaving to find out where the problems are. Let's find out what's going on. Why do you want to leave our schools? Hamilton Township is a great town. I love living here, and we need to see what we can do to keep them here. We need to make sure they make a livable wage. We need to make sure they're supported. Like I said earlier, my daughter is starting her first full year as an elementary school teacher, and she has to have an Amazon wish list so friends and family can send her supplies for her school. We should not have to have our teachers depend on friends and families for them to have supplies in their classrooms. We need to support our teachers so they can support our students, so that our students can succeed.
I think this is one question where we're all going to be in pretty good agreement up here, that there's a variety of things we should do for the teachers. We should get a plan together, who was ever on the board after the election, and deal with this problem, because no doubt it's a big contributor to being in the bottom third of all of the schools in the state of New Jersey. So if we make our teachers effective in the classroom and they don't think about leaving, they think about doing an even better job the next time, we'll all be better off, and we'll all cooperate in making that happen.
Supporting our teachers is key. Healthcare is a huge thing in any contract, any job. We might need to up that. Advancement incentives and their salary should hopefully keep and get teachers.
As John said, we're all pretty much going to be in agreement here that our teachers definitely always deserve more. The daughter of a teacher, I think teachers have always deserved more. But in addition to support monetarily, we also just need to support them as individuals. You know, a lot of times we say we want to advocate for our children, but we go in attack mode when it comes to our child. We need to figure out how to work with our teachers instead of telling them how to do their jobs.
I agree with Dave that unfortunately it's insane at this point in American society that not just in our Hamilton schools, not just in New Jersey, nationwide, teachers are having to make these wish lists to be able to fund their classrooms. We know that there's lack of funding in education nationwide, but our teachers are already, barely compensated for all of the work that they do. And this isn't just a Hamilton issue, we know that. I agree that working on salary, working closely with the HTEA, the teachers union, is absolutely important, because we're not going to get anywhere unless we work with the teachers and their unions. I agree, exit interviews would be a good idea. Also speaking to our teachers that are staying in the district about what they feel could be improved, what things they are happy with. Thank you, John, for bringing up the fact that we also have some issues with insurance, which tends to lead people in making different decisions when that's that's a very important part for our teachers with families. So again, looking at that again, trying to figure out where in our budget we can fit in more to support our teachers. Thank you.
Okay, we'll move on to closing remarks. It'll be 90 seconds for each candidate, and Ms. Harvey, we'll start with you.
Thank you. Just as a comment to Mr. Mayor about the cursive writing, that is an important issue, and I actually had a meeting this morning with Anthony Scotto, who is head of our curriculum, and there was a gap that teachers were not teaching cursive, and it was brought up at our March board meeting, and we made an effort to correct that for the second and third graders. So all second and third graders, the teachers have been advising the principals that they need to start correcting it. But there's still a gap. And I raised that gap this morning with Mr. Scotto, and we came up with a plan that is going through the process. That cursive is we're going to offer resources to the families for anyone who wants it online and written resources. And we're also looking to try to have a Saturday program or an after-school program, because that is, as Mr. Mayor said, a basic life skill that we really need. As to the raised test scores that Mr. Muka noted, if you look at the numbers, he's comparing our district to places that have a far higher average tax rate. For instance, Princeton, $20,000 compared to our $7,000. We do need funds, but we're doing very well to try to correct this issue. As to the books, there is no porn in our schools. My report went through to explain it does not meet a legal definition of pornography.
Once again, I'd like to thank the staff and everybody that had us out here tonight, and all you residents that took the time out to come out and support this great event. I have been a lifelong servant to Hamilton Township, where I served for 25 years as a volunteer firefighter and deputy chief, 8 years on our zoning board. And I look forward to this challenge of being able to serve on the zoning board, or on the school board, and help with the education system of Hamilton Township. I love serving Hamilton, I love serving this community, and I love the people of Hamilton, and I could not think of anything better than to sit up here and have an opportunity to have our kids and help them enrich their education so that they can succeed in life. Because when you get right down to it, that's what's important right here. Whatever our arguments are amongst one another, it's getting the kids to be successful, no matter what. End of story. Let's do what we can do. And no matter which three of us get on the board, hopefully it's our team, but if it's not, we learn to work together and do what's best for the students.
I think I agree with Dave on that for sure. What it comes down to is this. Both of these slates, and Don included, we all have specific skills, some different than others, some strengths, some weaknesses. For the bread and butter issues that have always been part of education, any one of us could work together with people in the front of the room here and make progress. But here's the difference. Some of the people up here have a blind spot when it comes to parental rights versus keeping secrets from the parents. A basic law was always, if somebody tells you not to tell your parents, that's the first thing you do, you tell them. So they have a blind spot about that. They have a blind spot about a second grade sex curriculum, which was just passed, and it goes on through all the other grades too, but it starts in second grade. They have a blind spot about that being a problem. And they certainly have a blind spot about how to recognize pornography when you see it. I give you examples of those books when if I have a chance. You make the decision when you take a look at it for yourself. So if you want to continue with business as usual here with that blind spot in place, you know the people to elect. If you want to make a solid change, make us the majority on this school board.
Again, I would like to thank everyone for coming out tonight, for setting this up. I look forward to the opportunity to work with the school board, all the members of the school board, and keep Hamilton schools going in the right direction.
Thank you, everyone, for taking the time to be here this evening, get to know us, and ask us some thoughtful questions. I really do hope I am elected to serve an additional 3 years. You know, I don't believe I have any blind spots. I believe that I want our children to be safe. I believe that the facts show that transgender children who are outed before they are ready attempt suicide far more frequently than their regular queer peers, who are already at 40% to their non-queer peers. I think that there's a lot of education that needs to happen on this issue to those whose families don't look like that. All right, we're talking about basic human rights. This is far beyond civil rights. These are human rights. These are individuals that should be respected as members of our community. And quite frankly, it's not in your home. Why does it matter to you? You know, they just want a safe place to go to school, to be kids, and they should be able to go there bully-free and feel welcomed, loved, and receive the same education as anyone else. My child is gay, and she is perfect. Her friends are transgender, and they are perfect.
Thank you, everyone, for coming out and spending the evening. I agree with and support my running mates' messages from what they've said this evening. I want to say, though, that personally, my goal is to get back to business. My goal is to, yes, support every student in all of our buildings and their families, but can we please get back to academics, to functioning as a moving society? There are changes that, you know, not all of us are always comfortable with, but at this point we are in a very diverse world where we have people coming from all different backgrounds, and it's about getting back to the academics. It's about getting back to our safety, security in the schools, the things that we can all agree on, the priorities like our teachers. Yes, there's one issue that continues to tear our community apart, but it's causing us to ignore all of the other big issues, the things that are important, that we all agreed are important, that all of these students are going to be adults one day. And it is our job as the adults around them and the adults in our community to make sure that they are getting a well-rounded education, period.
Thank you. As everyone else said, we thank everybody for being out here tonight. As I said in the beginning, I think it's wonderful that our community can come together with such a diverse opinions, backgrounds, to come together for the best of our students, our children, and our community at large. Really what it comes down to for everything is teaching our children the life skills that they need to not just get through school, but to have a foundation to be adults that operate within society safely and feel loved, welcomed, feel that they are part of something bigger than just themselves, and to get outside of themselves. I mean, that's really what it is. We want academic achievement, academic success. You know, a lot tonight we heard about the plans and about what they wanted to do and about what they might do and what they wanted, what they were looking to do in committees, but really results speak for themselves. The fact is that since 2018, so superintendent was hired in 2017, but since then, Steinert has dropped 58 spots in state ranking. West has dropped 60 spots in state ranking. Nottingham, 5 spots, so 218, 271, and 281 out of 350 high schools in this state. That is unacceptable. And if we have a superintendent that can't do his job, then we are, as the board, are supposed to hold him accountable. This board doesn't hold anyone accountable. They are not transparent in any way, shape, or form. And as we have seen tonight, as some of them are, one person of one slate will say, no, we can't address books, while the one will say, oh, no, we did try to address books. So which is it? Can you not address them, or have you tried to address them? So vote for whoever you think is going to be best for our schools.
All right, that's a wrap. Let's give a round of applause for all of our candidates. It takes a lot of courage and dedication to come out and throw your hat in the ring for a volunteer position such as this. So we thank you all from the bottom of our hearts. We all may not agree, but it doesn't matter. It's for the community. Thank you so much for coming out. Thank you, WBCB. And please make sure that you take the political, they've got pamphlets in the back, any snacks, water, etc., and make sure that you vote. And eat the cookies.